So Neka passes the ball and trips over AZ's foot. Oh no, she doesn't. She just trips over herself. The coach blamed AZ, tripped over her own feet, and dives through Paige's knee. Like, not an ideal situation. Paige is in serious pain. So she dives through Paige's knee. And by the way, it's not like Paige has had no injuries to her knee.
Watch that reaction carefully, because what you're seeing right there is genuine fear from someone who's been through this nightmare before. Paige Bueckers went down hard in the Dallas Wings game against the Atlanta Sparks on July 26, 2024, and for anyone who knows her injury history, those few seconds felt like an eternity. This isn't just another player taking a fall. This is someone who's already torn her ACL, someone who's already dealt with major knee surgeries, and someone who just had a concussion last season that kept her out 5 games. So when Satu Sabali's teammate Nako Agwamike crashes into her knee and Paige's head slams into the hardwood, everyone watching had the same thought, not again.
But not only that, look at how hard her head hits the ground. Like, she goes down hard. And you can see it in full speed. How hard her head hits the ground here. Oh. Oh no, that's not good. That is not good. And obviously she's able to walk out. And she's not walking 100%, but it looks like her knee's okay, which is kind of...
Here's what actually happened in that play, and it's important to understand the sequence because the coach tried to blame someone else entirely. Nako Agwamike receives a pass, trips over her own feet, not Atlanta's Ari McDonald like the Dallas coaching staff initially claimed, and goes diving directly through Paige's planted knee. Now, Paige has a history with that knee. She tore her ACL previously, and while tearing your ACL once doesn't make you more susceptible to impact injuries on the same knee, it does mean everyone's watching that joint extra carefully. But here's the thing that made this scarier than just the knee contact. Watch how her head hits the floor. The impact was severe enough that you could see it in real time. This wasn't a controlled fall, this was full momentum, head bouncing off hardwood, the kind of contact that makes trainers immediately check for concussion protocol. And given that Courtney Vandersloot's shoulder caught Paige in the head last season, resulting in a 5-game absence, the Wings medical staff had to be thinking about cumulative head trauma. The referees on that Vandersloot play? They called nothing. No foul, no review, just let it go. Paige missed 5 games because of that non-call.
There's no chance she plays tomorrow. I think the odds of Paige Bueckers playing in a back-to-back were low anyway. And hence why the league, she didn't play in any last year, and why the league gave them a schedule so that they didn't have any back-to-backs. I made it known how I felt about that at the start of the year, or before the year started, but they obviously had a schedule with no back-to-backs. That being said...
But here's what tells you everything about where the Dallas Wings are right now as a franchise. Paige went down, the game was only a 4-point margin, and they held on to win anyway. Think about that context for a second. The Wings are currently 17-8, riding a 6-game winning streak, and they've gone 8-2 through their last 10 games. This is a team that was 11-8 just a couple weeks ago, seemingly stuck in mediocrity, and they've suddenly figured out how to win close games consistently. They're now only a game and a half behind the 5th seed, which means home court advantage in the first round is actually within reach. So when Paige goes down in the 3rd quarter and doesn't return, this isn't a team that panics and collapses. Arike Ogunbowale and Satu Sabali stepped up and closed out a tough road game against an Atlanta team that's been competitive all season. That tells you this Wings roster has depth, has resilience, and has figured out their identity at exactly the right time. They're not just Paige Bueckers and friends anymore, they're a legitimate playoff threat.
But, yeah, this situation with Paige is not ideal. It's like, this is not what you want to see. You don't want to see someone falling at someone's knee, and you definitely don't want to see Paige potentially getting her 2nd concussion in 2 seasons. Like, her concussion last year, when she missed, I think she missed 5 games, because Courtney Vandersloot shoulder barged her in the head. Like, Courtney Vandersloot is, shoulder barged her in the head, and the referee said, oh, you know what, no call, no foul, we're all good.
Now let's talk about the schedule situation, because this is where the league's decision making comes into play. The Wings had 0 back-to-backs scheduled for the entire 2024 season. 0. The league specifically designed their schedule to avoid that situation, learning from how they handled things in 2023. But then the New York Liberty couldn't get their arena on the originally scheduled date, forcing a postponement, which created a makeup game that gave Dallas 3 games in 4 days. Suddenly, the Wings have a back-to-back against the Liberty tomorrow, then another game Wednesday. The odds of Paige Bueckers playing in a back-to-back were already low before this injury scare. She didn't play any last season, and the Wings have been careful about her workload all year. But now, after taking a knee to the knee and slamming her head on the court, there's zero chance she plays tomorrow against New York. Zero. And honestly, the Wings don't need her to. The Liberty have lost 5 straight games. They're in complete disarray right now, looking absolutely awful despite having one of the most talented rosters in the league. Dallas has already beaten New York twice this season, and with Sabali and Ogunbowale playing at this level, they should handle the Liberty even without Paige.
Your team held out. Like, it's a 4-point game and Paige goes out, and they held out to win that game. Like, that is an important win. And the Dallas Wings just keep winning close games. Like, they are 8-2 through their last 10, which is massive. It is massive to be 8-2 through 10 on a 6-game winning streak. And they went from 11-8 now to 17-8. You are, what, a game and a half off falling into the 5-6 slot. Have home court advantage right now, and currently the Aces are not in the greatest form in the world. Yes, the Valkyries are in better form than you, but you're only a game and a half behind the Valkyries. You're 2.5 games off the Lynx. Like, if you...
Here's the medical reality that Dallas has to consider. If this is a concussion, and given the way her head hit the floor, there's a legitimate chance it is, then Paige isn't playing either of these next 2 games. You don't mess around with head injuries, especially not with someone who already had a documented concussion in 2023. The protocol is clear, the timeline is non-negotiable, and no playoff seeding is worth risking long-term brain health. She'll sit out the back-to-back, she'll go through the full concussion protocol if needed, and she'll be back after the All-Star break when the Wings resume their schedule. And even if it's not a concussion, even if it's just general soreness and the knee checking out fine, why would Dallas risk it? They're in 6th place right now, basically locked into a playoff spot with 13 games remaining. The gap between them and the 8th place Chicago Sky is substantial enough that they're not falling out of playoff position. Home court advantage in round 1 would be nice, but it's not essential. What's essential is having Paige Bueckers healthy for the actual playoffs, not burning her out in late July trying to move up 1 seed.
That might be a big thing. If it turns out that like they can get the big arena, getting potentially 2 home playoff games is big, but you don't want 2 home playoff games. You want to win 2 in a row. Whether you're getting home court advantage or not, you want to win. You want to win 2 games in a row. So, yeah, look, home court advantage in round 1. If you're going to be a top 2 seed, getting home court advantage in the first 2 rounds is important, especially when it gets to best of 5. I'm going to be real. Home court advantage does not mean much in the best of 3. It really, really does not mean much at all.
Let's put this in perspective with the rest of the playoff race, because the Wings' position is actually more secure than it might seem. Indiana is currently sitting at 16-9, and they're playing Connecticut next. The Fever are probably going to win that game given how they've been playing, which would put them at 17-9 heading into the All-Star break. Atlanta is 15-10, but they don't play again until July 30th after the break. They've got a 10-day gap in their schedule, which is unusual but gives them time to rest and regroup. So if Dallas drops both games without Paige, worst case scenario, they're 17-10, still firmly in playoff position, still within striking distance of home court advantage. The Minnesota Lynx are at 18-8 in 4th place, the Aces are at 16-9 in 5th, and the Golden State Valkyries are at 15-10 in 7th. It's a tight race, but the Wings have built enough cushion that 2 losses without their star player isn't going to derail their season.
Healthy, because I'm not going to say she's on MVP trajectory this season because age is that much ahead of everybody else, but she's on like a all-W first team. Like, it seems like there are 4 all-W first team locks right now in Kelsey Mitchell, Aja Wilson, Paige Bueckers, and Olivia Miles. And then for me, that's that last all-W first team spot between Caitlin Clark, who else? Ryan Howard, maybe. Stewie. For that last spot is like an interesting one. But Yeah, so anyway, that is the video. Let me know you guys.
Now here's what makes Paige Bueckers' season so remarkable, and why this injury scare matters so much for the league. She's not going to win MVP. That award is A'ja Wilson's to lose at this point, and Wilson is so far ahead of everyone else that it's not even a conversation. But Paige is absolutely on the all-WNBA first team. Look at the locks right now. Kelsey Mitchell is having a career year in Indiana, averaging career highs across the board. A'ja Wilson is putting up historic numbers in Las Vegas. Breanna Stewart is doing Breanna Stewart things in New York despite their recent struggles. Naval Collier is carrying Minnesota on both ends of the floor. Those 4 are locked in. The 5th spot is where it gets interesting. It's between Paige Bueckers, Caitlin Clark, Rhyne Howard, and maybe Jewell Loyd if you want to make that argument. Paige has been the most efficient, the best defender of that group, and the most impactful two-way player. She's shooting nearly 40% from 3, she's creating for others at an elite level, and she's anchoring Dallas's perimeter defense. Clark has the counting stats and the narrative. Howard has been Atlanta's entire offense. But when you watch the games, when you see the impact, Paige has the strongest case for that final first team spot, which is exactly why Dallas cannot afford to lose her for any extended period. Not just because of wins and losses, though that matters, but because she's in the middle of a breakout season that's redefining how people view her as a professional player. She's not just the college star trying to figure out the WNBA anymore. She's a legitimate all-WNBA caliber player who's elevating everyone around her. Think about the context of this Dallas Wings season. They started 11-8, looking like a fringe playoff team that might sneak into the 7th or 8th seed and get bounced in the first round. Then something clicked. Paige's chemistry with Reich and Satu started flowing. The defensive rotations tightened up. They figured out how to close games in the 4th quarter, something that plagued them early in the season. And suddenly they're on a 6-game winning streak. They're blowing past teams in the standings, and they're looking like a team that could genuinely make noise in the playoffs. Home court advantage in round 1 might not seem like a massive deal, especially in a best-of-3 series where the higher seed only gets 2 home games if it goes the distance. But for Dallas specifically, there's a wrinkle that makes it more important than usual. If they can secure a top 4 seed, they have the option to move their playoff games to a larger arena. The Wings currently play in a smaller venue for regular season games, but the Dallas market can support a bigger building for playoffs. That means more revenue, better atmosphere, and a genuine home court advantage instead of just a neutral court with slightly more friendly fans. But you know what matters more than home court advantage? Having your best players healthy. And Paige Bueckers is unquestionably one of Dallas's 2 best players alongside Ike Ogunbowale. You don't risk that for regular season seeding. You don't push someone back from a potential concussion because you want to move up from 6th to 5th in the standings. The Wings have been smart about load management all season. They've been careful with Paige's minutes, and they need to stay smart now. The medical staff will evaluate her thoroughly. If there's any indication of concussion symptoms, she sits until she's cleared. If it's just knee soreness and a headache that resolves quickly, maybe she's available for the Wednesday game. But the back-to-back tomorrow against New York? That was already unlikely before the injury, and it's impossible now. The Wings will roll with Reich, Satu, and their supporting cast. They'll probably beat a Liberty team that can't get out of its own way right now, and they'll have Paige fresh and ready after the All-Star break. Let's talk about what this means for the rest of the season, because 13 games is enough time for everything to shift. The Wings are currently riding high, but they've got a tough remaining schedule. They still have to play the Lynx twice, they've got another game against the Aces, and they'll face the Sun, who are always difficult. If they can go 7-6 or 8-5 through that stretch, they'll finish 24-16 or 25-15. That's good enough for anywhere from 3rd to 6th seed, depending on how other teams finish. The Aces are the wild card in all of this. Vegas is 16-9 right now, but they're not playing like a championship team. They've been inconsistent, they've had chemistry issues, and they're clearly missing the dominance they showed in previous seasons. If the Aces continue to stumble, suddenly that 4th seed is wide open. Minnesota has it right now at 18-8, but they've got their own injury concerns and a schedule that doesn't get easier. The Wings could genuinely finish 4th if things break right, but none of that matters if Paige isn't healthy. She's the engine that makes their offense flow. Yes, Reich is the leading scorer and the closer. Yes, Satu is the versatile forward who can do everything. But Paige is the one who makes the right read every time, who gets them into their sets efficiently, who spaces the floor with her shooting threat, and who guards the opponent's best perimeter player on defense. You can survive a game or two without her against weak competition. You cannot make a deep playoff run without her. So here's what Dallas needs to do, and it's actually pretty simple. Sit Paige for the back-to-back. Maybe sit her for the Wednesday game too, if there's any doubt. Let her rest through the All-Star break. Give her a full 10 days to recover from whatever soreness or symptoms she might have. Then bring her back fresh for the final stretch run, when games matter most. The Wings have proven they can win without her for a game. They haven't proven they can sustain that over a long period, nor should they have to. The bigger question is whether this injury scare changes how Dallas approaches the rest of the season. Do they scale back Paige's minutes even more? Do they rest her in more back-to-backs if any others pop up? Do they prioritize health over seeding and just accept whatever playoff matchup they get? Because here's the reality, this team's ceiling is making the semifinals, and maybe, if everything breaks perfectly, pushing for a finals appearance. But that ceiling only exists if Paige, Arik, and Satu are all healthy and playing at their best in September. One more thing worth mentioning, the optics of this situation. The WNBA has taken a lot of criticism this season for scheduling, for player safety, for how they handle injuries and protocols. Having one of the league's brightest young stars go down with a potential head injury in a game that only happened because of a schedule change is not a good look. It reinforces the narrative that the league doesn't protect its players adequately, that the medical protocols aren't stringent enough, and that wins and losses are prioritized over long-term health. Dallas has an opportunity here to do the right thing, not just for Paige, but for setting a standard across the league. Sit her until she's 100%, don't rush her back, don't let competitive pressure override medical judgment. Show that player health actually matters more than playoff seeding, because if they do that, if they handle this correctly, it sends a message to every other team and every other player that this franchise values its people over short-term results. So what should you watch for over the next week? First, the official injury report. If Dallas lists Paige as out with a concussion, you know she's done until after the All-Star break minimum. If they list her as day-to-day with knee soreness, that's them being cautious but leaving the door open for Wednesday. Second, watch how the Wings perform without her. If they beat the Liberty convincingly tomorrow, it proves they've got depth and aren't completely dependent on one player. If they struggle, it shows just how valuable Paige is to their system. Third, watch the standings. If Dallas drops to 7th or 8th because of these games, does that change their calculus about resting players down the stretch? The bottom line is this, Paige Bueckers took a scary fall, hit her head hard, took contact to a knee that's already been surgically repaired, and walked off the court under her own power. That's the good news. The concerning news is that head injuries are nothing to mess with, especially for someone who's already had one concussion in the last 12 months. The smart news is that Dallas is in a position where they can afford to be cautious, where they don't have to rush her back, and where they can prioritize October over July. Whether they actually do that, whether they make the smart decision over the competitive decision, that's what we're about to find out. Because how the Wings handle the next 10 days will tell you everything about whether this franchise is built for sustainable success or just chasing short-term wins.